All right, let's talk about how projects always snowball. You could start off with springs on a Raptor, and next thing you know, you want a long travel kit with the full cage, and basically you're at a free runner. I've had a similar experience when it comes to this truck. Ever since we've had it, we've had the stock center console on it, and I absolutely hate it. The stock center console, the layout is awful. So I decided to go with the custom center console and spend a ton of time doing it. That snowballed into, there's no sound treatment under the stock center console, so that means we have to sound treat the bottom of the center console. Well, if I'm gonna do that, might as well sound treat the whole truck. After sound treating the whole truck, I'm like, why does the stock system sound so terrible? So this is a stock subwoofer enclosure, and I've done all the tricks that everybody says that you're supposed to do to make this sound better. We added foam and all that stuff, and it still didn't sound all that good, and the stock stereo system sucks. You have to basically put the volume almost at 3/4 just to even hear it over the loud ass tires and the exhaust. So this was not gonna work. We decided to look at maybe the Gen 2 subwoofer enclosure will be a little bit better, but the speaker didn't fit in here. I still got creative and said, okay, maybe I could power the speaker with this, and we did, and we were able to fit it behind the seat, but as you can see, got a bunch of scars. This didn't quite work, and it didn't sound good. Maybe we should try a different enclosure. So we did that. We got an audio sound enclosure. This is the stock subwoofer with the stock connector. This definitely made it sound better, but it didn't give it that extra oomph that I wanted. And again, volume had to be really loud. This didn't work. I had this 1600 watt amp laying around, and I figured, you know, this is a 5-channel amp. I could probably use this to power a subwoofer, right? It's 1600 watts. Sorry, 1600 watts. I think the RMS on this was 500 watts. I should be able to power just about any sub with this. So to save a little money, I started going on Facebook Marketplace.
I noticed thing that these are getting heavier and heavier.
And we found this beast. Yeah, I got a little carried away. This right here is a focal. I think it's focal. It's French. It's got to be focal.
Pain in the ass.
But this is their K2 12-inch subwoofer with a custom designed box. I forget the name of this. I'm gonna put it down here. Basically, it's a $1,200 subwoofer with an $800 enclosure. $2,000 subwoofer for $500. But this amp couldn't power it. This is RMS 500 watts. This thing needs 800 watts. So that means we have to get an amp. We got this bad boy. Audio control 800 watt RMS amp so that we can power this. But now there's another problem. I still have this amp, so might as well make the matching speakers, right? More 4K speakers. 2 sets.
One's upside down.
Why'd you put it upside down, Ethan?
Okay. Getting heavier and heavier.
2 sets to cover the front and rear speakers. Figure if we're gonna do a K2 subwoofer, might as well do the whole thing in focal. But now we run into another problem. I like my ventilated seats. And the only way to control the ventilated seat function on a Gen 1 Raptor is through the sync system. There's no other way. So if I want to have my nice fart filtration system, I need to keep the stock stereo. So in order to get the stock stereo, I need back parts module that's gonna give me line level output and their wiring kit so that I can wire to the stock speakers without having to rewire the whole truck. But this is not all the wiring that I need. I still need the line level connectors. I need the speaker connector. This is gonna be the speaker connectors for this bad boy. I need a way to distribute power. So I'm gonna be running this bad boy. More cabling, all the power wire, and then obviously I gotta have a subwoofer control knob. I need to do 1 gauge cable, so that means I gotta have a giant 250 watt amp fuse. And then don't forget that I gotta run this all through the firewall, so I gotta have a nice crazy little grommet to add on top of that. Plus I gotta carry extra fuses, and yeah. A couple grand later, I still haven't installed it yet. Oh, and to make this worse, this doesn't fit in the back of the truck with the chair the way it sits. To integrate that subwoofer into the back, I either just gotta put it there and not use the center bench, or I gotta modify this seat. And I think I am gonna modify this seat. We're gonna get a shop to help us cut it in half, redo the upholstery, and put the subwoofer right there in the middle. Kind of like, you know, baller style, right? Like the supercars. Can you guys even see me?
Yeah.
Can you see me?
You need to step in the
So yeah, things kind of snowball a little bit.
A little bit?
A little bit. So yeah, in this video, we're gonna get all this installed in the truck. Let's hope it doesn't snowball into more.
Next is paint the truck lime green.
No, I'm not going lime green.
Yes, we're
not doing lime green.
We're doing lime green.
No.
All
my tools and everything is already lime green. We don't need more lime green.
This has to go lime green.
No, screw off.
Yeah, that has to go lime green. Come on.
All right, let's get to it, guys. We got a lot to do.
You got a lot to do.
Now, to make the integration work and make it as easy as possible, we went ahead and got pack parts AP4 FD21. This is basically what's going to allow us to get line level The core solution is this little module right here, and this little module gives you 6 output, 2 for the regular speakers that does left, right, front, back, and then a separate one for your subwoofer. Included with the kit is a harness that basically wires your connection so that you can capture the audio, capture the chimes and everything you need, and then this connects back up to this module. What's also cool about this, it also gives you a blue switch wire so that it turns on with the radio. Now this is important. I've read a lot of forums and a lot of guys are like, well, just find a key switch circuit and do an ADA circuit. That doesn't work with the radio because the radio can stay on after you turn off the truck and after you turn off the key. The last thing you want is to turn off the key and have no radio when the truck radio is still working. So this allows it to function at the same time that the radio's on, so you have full audio the whole time. It also comes with a little volume knob. This allows you to control the volume of the chimes, which is kind of cool. In order to keep the chimes, you do have to keep the stock amp. You're gonna need this. This right here is a wiring kit for the amp. It allows you to take over the connection that goes back to the speakers. There's multiple connections here for different applications, but the one we need is the one that takes the connection back to the speakers. And it allows me to wire to the stock speaker cabling and then wire this back to the amplifier and be able to wire all my speakers to this without having to run wires to every single speaker in the truck. It comes with plenty of cables to run this as close as possible to your amp. Pigtails themselves come labeled, which makes things so much easier. We are using component speakers, and normally you put the component parts in the actual door, but since we're using this kit, all of our component bits to be able to separate between mid-range and tweeter is going to be by the amp. This helps make that wiring that much easier. This right here is harness to kind of fool the truck into thinking the stock amp is doing what it's doing. And then if you wanted to retain your stock subwoofer, you can actually power the stock subwoofer with an aftermarket amp. Be careful though if you do that, because those are only rated for so much power. And if you want to start small and do like a 5-channel amp for your whole system, kit allows you to do that. This right here, guys, is what's gonna make our integration easy. I'm gonna put the parts of all this stuff down below so that you guys know what to get. Make sure you guys check too, because there is a difference between the 10 to 12 and 13 and 14 Raptors based on the Sync 3 system. If you have a regular F-150, there's also some differences too, because some F-150s have the amp, some don't. If you have like the nice upgraded Sony system with Sync, you might have the amp. Some of the XLT models may not if they have the base radio. So make sure you guys look online. We got all this stuff from Crutchfield. Crutchfield has really good guides there to help you figure out what you need. This video is not sponsored by them in any way. Made our planning for this so much easier. For the first part of this video, we need to take apart our dash and get this integrated. To access the amp, you do have to remove the whole center console. We have a video on how to do that. We're not going to do it in this video. If you guys want to know how to remove center console, we're going to have a dedicated video here probably, or here somewhere on there. We're also going to need to do that for us because we want to run the cabling on the back and we have to access our amp because my amp is still sitting under this center console. To make my console removal easier and for everything else that I want to do, I'm actually going to take out the console and I'm going to take out the seats just to make things easier. We're going to do the same in the back when we install the amps. It's just an extra couple minutes to disconnect things, guys, and it's totally worth it. Remember, on the back seat, there's 2 in the front, this one and the one on the other side, and there's 3 in the back, included for the seatbelt. Let's see if it'll come out. Is there a cable?
No, there's a bolt.
What's the bolt for?
Here and it's 2 bolts.
Oh, those 2 bolts are held in together? So it looks like there's 2 bolts down there too, guys. Because Ford could make things consistent. That right there is a T40. Okay, let's see if it'll come out.
We'll move. Oh, this bracket's underneath this one, so we have to take out this one first before we take out this one.
Really?
Yeah, if you look at it, the bracket for this seat is over this one.
That's some bullshit.
So we have to take out this seat first before even this one goes out.
That's some bullshit. All right, so both seats gotta come out. God damn it. Go up.
Yes, I know, shut up.
Con huevos, cabrón. So it's not a bad idea to put the hardware back, guys, so you don't lose it. That's what we're doing right now. Putting the hardware back so we don't lose anything. You already disconnected the seatbelt. You can feed it through.
This?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Feed it through. See? There you go. Okay, let's put all the bolts back. Next, we remove the center console to get access to the stock radio and run cables to the back under the carpet. We also spent some time cleaning the carpet to have a nice clean space to work on. Okay, we're gonna start off by getting our modules installed behind the dash and running all of our cabling to the back. Now, there's a couple things you have to do to access everything behind the screen. You do have to start off by taking the airbag off. We've already done it on ours, so we're gonna do a quick montage here on how we did that. I gotta disconnect the battery so that it doesn't blow up in my face. Now, first step, we gotta get this out of here. Let's see if I can remove those 2 bolts and disconnect the flap. That's out. So that's going to give me a little bit more room to work with. So it's 3 bolts underneath that get it out. For the airbag, those 3 got to come out, and then we should be able to pop off the airbag. Give it a little bit of a push. We got to disconnect it, and it's got a connection on each side. An airbag is out. So in order to take these off, like I was saying before, you got to take the airbag off so I can give you access to these bolts here. I'm going to take these 2 and this one. I don't think you actually have to take that one off if I'm honest, because we're not removing that piece. So I'm actually going to tighten it back. Normally people just pop this off like this and just kind of pop it off enough to make space. But since we took out our center console, I'm actually going to pop off that bolt. You do also have to take this little cover off. There's a little cover that comes here. Right now, we're going to try to pop this off. I got to take this whole structure off because we don't need that right now. And then we're going to try to pop that side off. There it is. Disconnect all this stuff and get it out of the way. Cheers. Okay, now what we're trying to access is these bolts. Now this you can pop off, but it's just gonna give you just enough room to get back there. I wanna do this right, so we're kind of popping this off. There we go. So that side's loose. And that gives me the access I need over here. See what we did, guys? We popped this off, and then that allowed this to come out freely. That gives us access to that bolt. And then I think there's that bolt down there, and that one that has to come out. Come on, old man.
Use your big purse.
There it is.
Oh, just weren't using your big purse.
That's what it was. 2 connectors in the back of this that gotta come out. This one down here. Wow, the climate control is a tiny little connector. That's like that. She's out. We can access the radio.
In the future, are you gonna upgrade that?
Maybe. Okay, next to access the harnesses, we need to take the display unit out. It's 4 bolts on each side. I'm not sure if we have to take this bad boy out. Ah, don't fall. Should be able to pop this out. And there it is. Get it out. It's actually dusty. So this is the harness kit that comes with the pack parts little module. This little module can sit wherever you want. We're actually going to have it be down here somewhere because I want to have it accessible should I need to do any kind of updates or for configuration and all that stuff, because there is like you do have to push that button and do all kinds of stuff to set the tone. So I want it accessible, and I'm going to put it down at the bottom. Now the one with the latch is the same as this. So this part right here goes to the head unit, and then this part goes to that. On the other side, we have another connector. It looks like we tapped the longer one of the 2 and then put this one to the back of this. Let's tap this one first. There. And this. Feeding all these cables in here is going to be the big challenge. But right now, I'm going to feed that right there. This one is going to go into this thing. Oh, you know what? We're going to have to tuck this behind that bracket. So it's going to work this right there because it's got to make room for the connector. I'm going to hook this up here. Gonna put it behind that. Hopefully that doesn't damage it long term. There we go. This is my big concern, to see how tight that is. It's super tight.
That's what she said.
Alright, that's in. Very dusty. She dirty. Man, blown away that all the controls is this tiny little control is down at the bottom.
Aren't you gonna clean that one off?
Thanks for the reminder, Christian. She dusted. Now we gotta get the airbag back in. Anytime you guys mess with an airbag, you disconnect the battery. We already disconnected our battery ahead of time. You don't want that blowing up in your face.
There we go.
Okay. All right, so we got the pack parts thing wired in, cable down, we got our trigger wire, and then we got our main cable that's gonna be routed along the side here all the way to the back. I was gonna route it down the middle. There's not that much space in there, and that stuff is super tight, so we're not gonna route it down the middle. We're gonna route it down the sides. A couple things here. I did make it accessible, so we put the Velcro on there. It's got Velcro on this side here. I got my little adjustment button wired in. I'm mainly going to leave that in there for now, but this right here is how you adjust your tones. So I want to make sure that I have that wired in. I went ahead and prepped my harnesses. So basically all the split ends, I went ahead and put shrink wrap on there because they're not going to be used, so I might as well protect them. And then the center channel, that's not going to get wired up. So we went ahead and protected that as well. Everything else, left, right speakers, tweeters, everything else is going to get wired, so that stays open. So that right there is basically how it should look. The small connector still goes in. That one gets the resistors. Blue one goes in as normal because we're not just doing the sub, we're doing everything else. And then that wire harness right there is for all the speakers. That goes to the back. Now I'm gonna pull the cables through the middle and up to here. Now this was a bit to do earlier, so I'm gonna protect these a little bit. I don't wanna lose all the labels, so I put that little bit of shrink wrap. We're gonna use our green pull tape to feed it through. To run the cables, we had to lift up the carpet, so removing the seats was a must here if you're gonna run them the same way. Just make sure you're careful with where you run them to in the back so that they don't get pinched by the seats when they get reinstalled. So this is what we're going to end up using to run all the cables into the cab. We did try that grommet up there, but it's super tight. Here's where the truck's main grommet is. So what I'm thinking of doing is I'm going to drill a hole down here. And if I do it here, it'll be protected. It won't have risk getting hit by the tire. I want to be extra careful. We've already kind of looked to see if there was anything there. There's not. So I'm going to have Christian go inside and keep an eye out, make sure that we're not causing any major damage. Yell at me if it's shit. Nice clean hole. So this right here will fit in there, so I'm not too worried about that. But these are too small, so we're gonna go down to this size right here, and this is what we'll end up clamping down to close it up. Just like that, she's in. You're weird. Once again, we used our pull cable here to run the wires through the firewall. Now the reason why we're going so big, this is a 1.0 gauge, is because we're gonna be running 2 amps. So we need to have that extra power handling for the 2 amps. So that'll just stay there. All right, so you play. Here we are installing a 250 amp fuse holder. You need 250 amps because of the 2 amps in the back. And then we had to fab our own bracket just to mount it. There wasn't much space. We decided to mount it onto the supercharger coolant reservoir. It's coming in pretty good. Despite the thickness, it wasn't too bad to get through. Now, one thing that we did come across is these were full of water. There's a little grommet down here that we're able to take out, but look at that. Both sides had water in there. What the fuck? Now we could reinstall our custom console, but before we did, we made some updates to it. We wired the LEDs in the cup holder, and we replaced some hardware that was not working. Installation was super easy, and we also used this as an opportunity to move the stock amp out from under the center console so that we can run vents to the rear passengers. But that's for another video. We also reinstalled our iPad mount, and we got the front chairs back in. All right, we got the whole front of the truck back in place. I may have to take things out because I know I forgot to run something, but where am I gonna sit? Well, see these tie down points? You just lay down, and then I strap you in, one strap for the legs, one strap for the chest, you're good.
Should work out fine, right?
Yeah, and you get to sleep the whole day, the whole way.
I don't think I'm long enough to fit lengthwise in here.
Try it out, lay down. Bet you can fit. Now we're just gonna have to chop your legs off.
Yeah, I'm just gonna
There you go. But I'm telling you, we can strap your ass in.
no lady.
Yeah. He's single, ladies.
Here, I got it.
There you go, that works.
Let's go.
What happens if you fall into the hole?
Then I fall into the hole and get something shoved up my butt.
Here. This will help you out.
Oh, yeah, sweet.
It'll be center seat, just like in the pre-runners.
No shit, right? I'm ready to go.
Okay, now figuring out the placement for the amps. This one's gonna be interesting because I think I'm gonna have to cut this back a little bit. And I may have to cut the carpet up a little bit in order to have it fit right. We'll have to see. We're gonna have to do a board that goes from there all the way over, and then do the power center in the middle. So we're gonna have that red wire go all the way in, hit that. And then the ground, we can use either this one or that one. Both those can be used for ground. The good thing is the piece we got, we can do a distributed on power on the red side, and then we can do a distributed on the ground on the right side, which is kind of cool. We can even do a pass-through on the power wire, if you guys can see that. So it gives me a couple options. We can do up to 4, which we're only gonna use 2, and then just 4 on the black, which is completely separate, and then there's spare fuses in there. And I bought some extra fuses so I can have some spare ones in case I blow shit up.
I don't know how to respond to that.
Now, my biggest concern is going to be is if it's going to fit behind the seat. Next up, we need to figure out how to mount our amps. Using some scrap particle board I had, we started our amp plate. When installing everything on the truck, we took great care to make sure nothing was being pinched and leveraged the channels in the metalwork on the rear cab. Okay, we got the wiring done. I had to go this way because of the way the cable was being stretched. So I had to go around that side. Did a loop back into there. Got our fuses. Everything's back hooked up to power. And now we get to turn it on and blow it up and see if it actually works. Don't know if it's gonna work. You ready, Ethan?
I got you.
I got no sound.
You got no sound?
Okay, found out my error. I forgot to wire the ground. Gonna wire it up here. All right, Ethan, crank it. I got static. Now, I'm not gonna put music on right now, guys, because if I put music on, copyright. So I think I'm gonna get the sub wired in first, make sure all the audio works good with some DRM-free music, and then we'll finish up. We also needed to finish our cable management and trim down the power center cover so that it could fit the cables that we were running. We also drilled the cab and used some jack nuts, kind of like rib nuts, to hold the amp plate in place. And the board's finally in. After what seemed like forever doing cable management, finally got it in. Hopefully there's no fitment issues. My only concern is that it's a little bit higher than I like, but we'll see. Hopefully it's okay. She's all in, everything's wired up, everything's cable managed. Really like how that thing turned out. Does a really good job of distributing power. I wish he had the blue wire in there too. That would be cool if I distribute that. And then it's all fused, and I got my 2 spare fuses in there. I did have to trim it a little bit though, in order to get the cables to fit because I was using a little bit larger cables, but everything's in. Now I don't expect the carpet to fit over this, so we are going to have to trim the carpet. And I think the goal for the trimming is to just let the amp stick out and the power center to stick out, but do flaps over everything out. I'm hoping that'll work and give us the space and everything we need, but it also let the amps breathe and we can see anything going on. And this is a lot of work. This is a lot of work. We haven't even got to the point where we can start testing the audio. I did a quick test yesterday and realized I screwed up. I had the gains up too high on that one and too low on this one. So I got to do some configuration with the pack audio system and play around with that a little bit and get the levels to where I need them. I'm tired, guys. Big project. Okay, now that we got everything wired up and everything powers up, next thing I want to do is do a sound test. But to do a sound test, I got to get the subwoofer in. Now, this subwoofer came with some really funky connectors for the cabling. Now, it's a dual voice coil.
Dual rear wheel. Real.
It's a dual voice coil. I'm going to go in there and confirm the cabling, but I got the matching connectors, which these are XT90s, and we're going to make the cable off of that. Do all configuration according to the manual and get that going. But I kind of like these connectors. They're battery connectors, and they kind of work. I think they'll be pretty secure for off-roading. So I did take this apart and realize that it's not wired correctly. I think it's wired in series when it should be in parallel. So this is something I have to redo. I have to redo the cabling. Look at this box, guys. Fully insulated. It's ported all on the back. Look at the subwoofer. Look at the size of this thing, man. This thing is massive. So hopefully once I get the ohms right, I'm hoping it'll do good. Now, some of you may be wondering why this matters, the way it's wired matters. Well, in order to get the peak power out of this, with the amp that I have in the truck, I need to wire this for 2 ohms. And in order to wire for 2 ohms, it basically has to be wired, each cone has to be wired individually and then merged together. Now, rather than, do what these guys did where they did it in series in the box, I would rather do it out here. I mean, why do it inside the box, when you can just adjust your wiring over here and do what you need to do, so you never have to open the box and deal with the bullshit that we had to deal with just opening this thing. So now, if you don't have a toner, there is a way for you to check the cabling too, like I did. You put the cables together and go over here and you do a continuity test. Now, mine beeps when I do a continuity test, so if I put it on there, so I know that it's at. See, nothing on that one. So that's another way to make sure you're doing it right. Now we need to figure out how we're going to lay the sub in here, because it is huge. How big is it, Ethan?
It is huge.
Huge.
Now mute this. I might send a picture to you.
It's heavy, huh?
Where's it going?
Right in the middle.
In the middle?
In the middle.
With the cable facing back, right?
Yes. It's heavy, huh?
You're heavy.
One option is to make it downfiring like that, make it as part of a custom center console, and, have the vents and everything come out through there and have it reach all the way to the back.
Have it vibrate the whole truck as you play like EDM.
What's wrong with that?
Because all you're going to hear is,
Another option is to go vertical like that, have the port up the top and the back like that. I think that looks cool. Let's see what it looks like from the front. That's like supercar style right there. That's going to require modifying the seat, but I'm kind of leaning towards that right now. That looks cool.
Both of these are going to require modifying the seat.
Yeah, regardless, we're going to need to modify the seat, but that's a bigger modification.
This car used to be a 5-person car. Now it's a 4-person with that.
I like the way that looks. I mean, seriously, look at it from the front.
Why?
That's just cool. That's just cool.
Why do you need it?
Why not?
Who's going to sit in your car and want to listen to like 808s blasting?
Fuck that. We'll put some like, I don't know, some Vicente Fernandez or something like that. Put some fucking cumbia on. Put some Mexican music on.
Mr. Fiji.
All right, now we're going to do a temporary solution. For right now, it's just going to go flat, facing up until I can figure out feet and all that stuff. But I like this idea. I think this would be badass.
This is not a good idea.
It's a great idea.
Getting this whole thing was not a good idea.
Yeah. You don't need cup holders, right?
I don't need a whole seat, apparently.
Yeah, well, you don't.
They don't.
You don't need 2 seats. You just need 1. There's only 4 of us.
Yes.
I like that idea. I really like that idea right there.
Might as well buy another one and replace the whole back seats with them because you don't go off-roading with anybody else.
Dude, do like 3 of them? Hell yeah.
Shatter the windows before we even get here or anything.
I like this idea. I like center mount.
I don't like it.
I really like center
I don't
mount.
like it. Good luck.
Or do we go flat like this? I don't know. I'm going supercar. I like supercar style. Supercar it is.
3 days later.
Now I did preview my setup and ask folks, how should we lay this sub out, right, to get the most out of it? And I was blown away by the comments that I got back. Most everybody was like, why don't you just go with an underseat subwoofer and go that route, or try to do something behind the back seats? Well, if you guys have been following the series, you know there's very little space in this truck. There's very little space under the seats for any kind of subwoofers. And the only thing you can do is 8-inch subwoofers. And even then, you can't even do a full-size 8-inch because there's not that much space here. Behind the seat, there is no room. We tried it. It doesn't work. And it just doesn't work. And your only option is shallow mounted subwoofers. I've done shallow mounted subwoofers before. They do not sound good. They do not sound full. They don't replicate, all the different sounds and nuances that I wanted to hear. And if I was going to spend the money, I wanted a high-end system. I wanted something that was going to sound really good at low volume or at high volume. I am really happy with the way it turned out. We are going to figure out our setup, and most likely that is going to go in the middle, facing forward. I know. A lot of you guys are like, what the hell? Why? If you want good sound, you got to have a well-designed box, and you have a large box. A speaker like this needs a large box. This is a massive speaker. I mean, you guys look at it there, right? Bottom of the speaker's right about here, right before the port. There's a port down here. It's right about there. It takes up the whole room in that box. You can't just put that under the seat. It's a full 12. And it's going to give me the best sound quality possible. So far, I'm really happy with it. And there's definitely a lot of potential there. And I think it's going to be worthwhile spending the money on an equalizer to really bring out that extra little bit of sound quality and make it sound that much better. So next up, we're going to start installing the door speakers. Now to do this, there's 4 bolts. You got a bolt there, 2 bolts underneath. 1 and 2. So there's a comparison between the two. Cheap paper, a little bit higher materials. I'm hoping these sound much better, and these are component, right? So component definitely helps. Crutchfield does give you a little pigtail so you can just hook it up and go, but we can't just do that because this is a component speaker. We have to put in the corresponding filter or whatever so that it gets the right sound. Removing the door covers is easy. Just remember that once all the bolts are out, you just lift up and then remove the door. Obviously, don't forget to disconnect all the electrical connections and the door cable. Now, installing the speakers was super easy here because we picked speakers that are going to be direct fit. Okay, now we got to get these out and put those in. Now, I've heard that you can Dremel these out a little bit, so we got to Dremel out. We're going to make them fit, and you don't have to actually screw it back in. So I'm going to try to get it in there, see how it works out. Oh, and we also have to put in the resistors. So we're going to have to cut up this harness in order to put in the correct resistors that came with the box. Okay, we got the driver's side done. I ended up using like a little felt strap just to kind of add some extra hold there. It doesn't really need it. It's kind of just held there by friction. And then I added the crossover harness to the stock connector. Now, if you're wondering how much to cut, here's kind of a little trick that I found. So see that lip that's there? That whole lip has to go away and then some. So as a starting point, I'm gonna go ahead and remove that whole lip, and then I'll be able to tweak it and get that nice final fitment to get it in. That'll save you guys some time, because I took a ton of time with that first one. Ooh, they came out pretty. Now, doing the rear door is very much the same as the front door. You have the same bolts, one behind here, one here, and two under there. But there's an extra bolt that's hidden behind this trim panel right here. You just basically pop that off and take that bolt off, and you'll have access to get the cover off. Now, as you guys can see, I picked a slightly different location for the tweeter. I could have put it, probably somewhere in here. There is a hook here, so you have to be careful. So I could have probably placed it here, but the quality of these tweeters is really good. And if I would have put it flat, I would have been hearing it in the front seat. And I didn't want to hear it in the front seat. I wanted this more focused for the rear passengers. This is the location we ended up with. We ended up drilling a hole straight down for the cables. And then the kit comes with several screws designed for this specific application. And we were able to install it there. I personally think this is a good spot. I like the way it ended up. We could have made our lives easier and gotten the speaker with the integrated tweeter. But I wanted a full range speaker with separate tweeters so I can get the best audio quality possible. Okay, once you get the whole system in, like we just did, it's not over, right? I think with some of the cheaper systems, you can get away with that, just doing the basics, hooking it up, and off you go. But with higher-end speakers, you do need to spend a little bit of time. Now, with the Amp Pro, there were some additional steps we had to do. First, we had to set our minimum volume. If you set this too low, you're actually gonna end up putting the gains up higher on your speakers back there, and that ends up causing noise and all that stuff. Now, we ended up playing around with it, and in order to get the output that I want out of that subwoofer, I had to put this minimum volume all the way up to 20 so that this sounded good at about half volume. And to give you guys a point of reference, before, in order to have it sound good, I had to be almost at 75%. I had to be here just for it to sound good. Now I'm closer to here, which is kind of cool. I get quite a bit more range. The other thing you need to do is set your chimes. Now, these little chimes right here, if you play with them, you hear that? That's those chimes. I don't want mine loud, so I set these to 5. 5 is my setting. I don't want it too loud. Can enable the EQ. I noticed that I wasn't getting the sound that I wanted from that subwoofer until I actually started playing around with these, and I modified the bass EQ to 120, and that changed the output from the bass, and it sounded a little bit better. A couple of things too that I would recommend is to set the gains on your amps before you do your first test. Make sure you set the main amp to be probably at 0 or negative if you can, and then play around with the gains to get the volume levels that you want. In my system, I ended up having to do the sub amp is about 1/3 to 1/2 and gain, right? It depends on what I'm doing. I did get the little control because I am gonna have to mess with it depending on the type of music I'm listening to. And then the speaker amp, I ended up having to be at about -2 in order for it to sound right. If I put the gain up too high on the main amp, I could barely hear my subwoofer. And this is a high-end subwoofer that requires a lot of power, so yeah, you have to have that a little bit higher. The only other thing too is we ended up having to do the volume adjustment on the subwoofer to hear it too, and I had to put mine all the way up in order to have good sound. So that was the one thing. And now she does sound good. Let me play a quick clip for you guys so you can hear it. And this is DRM free music too, so I'll be able to actually show this to you guys and not have to worry about it. But yeah, I'm gonna go about medium volume, but let's see if it translates to the GoPro. that's a little under half volume, it sounds really good. Like I said before, I used to have the volume almost all the way up to the top just to hear it while driving with the Sony sound system, and what a difference. And the clarity that comes out and the fullness that comes out of the focal speakers, it's really good. I am so happy I did this. And typically when I've done these kind of upgrades, guys, I've always had that regret, right? Because you get it installed, you set it up, and it doesn't sound as good, right? Because you either bought the wrong box or, you know, whatever. And this sounds good. I'm happy. I think I may end up getting digital EQ just so I could bring that extra out of this, because I feel like there's so much more left in these speakers. There's so much more there that we can bring out of this, just based on what we're hearing right now. I mean, no EQ and they sound amazing. Sounds really good. Now we finished up the system by installing all the trim panels back in place. I also installed the subwoofer knob that I forgot to run previously. We also cut up the rear carpet just so that we can get our amps there and have plenty of breathing room, right? So that they don't overheat. And it's important to have this back on here, guys. So much noise makes it through the vents and all that stuff back here, even with sound treatment, that the level of exhaust and road noise that I was getting in the cab without this was just huge. So make sure you guys get this back installed. It's worthwhile for the sound treatment. All right, guys, so that's it for this video. Next up, we're gonna work on modifying our seats to get that dual jump seat setup back here without the bench. So we're going to document that for you guys in case some of you guys want to replicate it. I know it's not for everybody, but it's something cool I want to do, and I think it's going to end up pretty awesome. We're also going to add a DSP. For those that don't know, it's a digital signal processor. It's basically like a modern version of an equalizer. We're going to add an EQ so that we can do EQs for all the speakers individually and for the subwoofer to really tap into the full potential of the system we just installed. A lot of people tend to install these systems and just do it like that and figure that's it. And if you really want to get the full potential out of your investment, you have to get a digital signal processor, a DSP. So we're going to get that in. We're going to try to do the tuning ourselves, and depending on how it sounds, we may end up hiring one of those companies that does the tuning and have the audio tuned up. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Thanks a lot for watching. If you have any questions or comments, put them down below, and we'll see you guys on the next one.